Because right now, 99% of all data that has been created, even to this day, 99.99% of it is related to what one sees and what one hears. So everything related to audio, text, and images. In order for AI to really understand humans and the physical world, it is important that these other senses are also developed at the same time. Someday in the not too distant future, it would be amazing for robots to be able to smell like humans and taste like humans as well. And we work on a few different keystone projects, one of which is Project Atlas. The idea behind that one is we're trying to create this sort of like, hopefully one of the world's first open source data sets, specifically around smells, taste, and touch. We were able to get the designs and have the schematics rolling, and that seems to garner quite a bit of attention as well for many people. As a matter of fact, one of them is actually eager to use one of these devices because this one person wants to be able to annotate her late grandmother's dish who's on the other side of the world. And so being able to memorialize that or eternalize that sort of like that dish of xiaolongbao, like the smells and the taste of it.
Hey Fernando, welcome to my podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Glad to be here.
A lot of my guests, I meet them at the events that I host in New York City. But you, I actually met out in my trip to out west to San Francisco, and you were hosting your own event. So I attended your event that was centered around robotics. Had a lot of interesting startups that people were presenting, and now you have me visiting New York. And so, well, we're still doing a virtual interview, but yeah. Anyway, I ran into you last night at my event, and so now here we are. So first off, before we jump into what you're working on for your venture, do you mind just telling me how you got into the startup space to begin with, and just some background about yourself?
I was born and raised in Los Angeles to a family of entrepreneurs. And so I got into this whole tech scene after starting this 3D printing company, building printers out and printing out a bunch of things for hobbyists around the world. That started in LA. At the same time, I was also doing acting and modeling during my teenage years, so something completely different. But as I got to understand and build upon the business around 3D printing, I realized there is a lot of growth happening within the tech sector. And my brother kind of like also helped to spark that motivation. He allowed me to stay like in the Bay Area for some time. And yeah, I really started liking the environment and like the people and just the overall mindset has been just like everyone is so ambitious. And so that was one of the reasons why I ended up deciding the Bay Area should be my home. That was roughly 10, 11 years ago. And so ever since then, I was studying a lot around, initially it was like around biomedical engineering. And eventually I graduated from San Francisco State, like studying economics and biological sciences or biomolecular um, sciences. And for my master's, it was around computational, like data analytics, anything related to data. So then I ended up so I went to Harvard for my master's, and then I went to a company called where I was basically showcasing what is at the forefront of numerous industries to a lot of VCs and corporate VCs around the world, but also to the Japanese and East Asia market. And ever since I've started Universal AI Services as recently as 2 months ago, kind of continuing it under my own brand or our own brand. Yeah, we really like showcasing to the community what is at the forefront of numerous industries around AI. I'm glad you were able to be part of that that circle as well, because what was it? It was like last week, only last week, right?
Yeah, time has flown, but I mean, yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
So the crazy thing about it is, okay, it's our first major launch, but it initially started, okay, we maybe had 200 people who were interested in the event itself. Okay, they were invited and like a couple of people signed on, roughly 50 to 100 the day before. But for some reason, the morning of, it popped out of my notifications that suddenly like almost 2,000 over 2,000 people were
Oh
basically
wow.
interested. And now suddenly we had like 220 people registered. And like we were very concerned that like it might be at overcapacity because we attended an event a week prior and it was just like absolutely chaos. Like no one could move anywhere. And so we just capped it at 220, and we encourage people to tune in via Zoom and on YouTube Live as well. At the end of it, about 165 people had checked in, and apparently 200 people have viewed the program on YouTube Live as well, across 30 different countries. It seems like, it's gaining quite a bit of momentum since. And I'm glad like I was able to meet amazing people like yourself. Like also now here in New York.
Yeah, no, thanks for that overview. Yeah, that's great that you're able to get so much traction out in San Francisco. I mean, one of the things that I'm wondering about here in New York is how does the environment here compare to San Francisco, which we talked about last night. I know you said and I've heard other people say there's a lot of talent density in the Bay Area. So many people move out there that have great technical skills and lots of ambition. I saw someone post that even today on LinkedIn, and then someone commented some negative stuff about maybe I don't know the environment in San Francisco. It's a bubble, or oh, there's homeless people, that kind of stuff. What was it? What's your overall impression of SF versus New York so far?
Yeah, so I will say for some time, San Francisco is kind of the land of two worlds in some ways. Like you have the absolute like poorest, like the homeless people living in the same streets as like, the world's richest, literally in the same street, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, San Francisco at the same time has been the land of firsts in the sense of it has its booms and its busts. And at the end of the day, frankly, San Francisco is ushering in its new renaissance, especially given the AI boom. And with companies such as OpenAI, I mean, Uber is headquartered there, Lyft, and all these other amazing companies just propping up and really building a lot of valuable services for the world. There still retains, okay, elements of like homelessness and like safety, but that is being solved like very fast. So, frankly, I think the Trump administration was supposed to send the National Guard, but just at the last minute, he and the mayor of San Francisco, Daniel Lurie, decided to just like call it off because there's a lot of progress being made around safety and crime. And so, like it's interesting, like to be able to witness how all this is unraveled so far. But moving forward, as far as like how the New York vibe is, at least from my personal view, there seems to be a lot of amazing, talented people around here, but they're primarily focused around like maybe fintech or creating like the next social network. Whereas in the Silicon Valley or in the Bay Area, it's just like everything revolves around tech, right? So it's like you have tech law, you have food tech, health tech, tech, it's so deep tech and all. And really the sort of like it's kind of like a Disneyland for entrepreneurs and startup people like me who really want to try to make a difference in the world and the way how we see things as well. The mindset there is also very liberal and in the sense of being open-minded.
Right.
And hence there's this sort of like risk-taking culture that allows people to be able to like think beyond than what is capable of right now, than what humans can do. So.
Yeah, yeah, I would certainly say my own impression of San Francisco as far as the culture is definitely like you said, everything's oriented towards tech. And as far as the talent density or the density of entrepreneurs, I'm always looking out when I attend these events to for great people to interview. And then yeah, just during my short time there, I was able to find several guests that seem like great people that are working on real startups. One of them was got funding from Sam Altman even, and they're much closer, it seems, to the source of what's going on. So yeah, from that perspective, it really does make me wonder, do I have to if I'm serious about starting a company, move out to San Francisco? But yeah, for right now, tell me about what you're working on. In your background right here, I see Universal AI Services, right? So is this the main thing that your main venture that you're working on right now? Was there a previous venture that led into this?
Not necessarily. So it's all built from scratch. Of course, it did retain a lot of elements from like my previous roles because I've already developed quite the network. You know, having been immersed in the Silicon Valley community for over a decade, right? So I tend to, and the thing with the Bay Area is it's also like a lot less people than New York. And so you tend to meet the same people and like you get to see them like over the
Yeah,
years.
that's interesting.
So that's another thing to keep in mind when trying to create universal AI services. It felt like at least so we are a general AI consulting company that deals with everything related to all things AI. And we work on a few different keystone projects, one of which is Project Atlas. And the idea behind that one is we're trying to create this sort of like hopefully one of the world's first open source data sets, specifically around smells, taste, and touch. We were able to get the designs and have the schematics rolling, and that seems to garner quite a bit of attention as well for many people. As a matter of fact, one of them is actually eager to use one of these devices because this one person wants to be able to annotate her late grandmother's dish, who's on the other side of the world. And so being able to memorialize that or eternalize that sort of like that dish of xiaolongbao, like the smells and the taste of it. She wants to be.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure exactly what you meant there. So when you say annotate her dish, like you'd be able
We
to
have a
replicate
device.
all the
Yes.
sensory experiences of her dish.
Yes, so we would have this data, like open source data set around smell, taste, and touch, and we're also working on a device to be able to like allow people to annotate and record like different dishes, smells, and everything that they would encounter. Because right now, 99% of all data that has been created, even to this day, 99.99% of it is is related to what one sees and what one hears. So everything related to audio, text, and images. But in order for AI to really understand humans and the physical world, it is important that these other senses are also developed at the same time around because someday in the not too distant future, it would be amazing for robots to be able to smell like humans and taste like humans as well. And so with this device, yes, it would be a two-way device where you'd be able to not only record stuff, but hopefully also identify like certain kind of smells as well. You can think of it as like a Shazam for smells or Shazam for taste. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, no, I know every so often you'll smell some smell that you're not sure exactly what it was, but then all of a sudden you're hit with like a wave of nostalgic memories, and then it's like, oh wow, that's I must have smelled that before whenever I had those memories, and it would be nice to be able to tell what that smell exactly is. But so I have like endless questions thinking about how this device would work. I mean, do you guys know how exactly are you encoding like a smell into data? Like how does that even work?
Right. So right now we're currently in the stage of like fundraising, more or less about 500,000 on a $5 million cap. And the idea behind this is we hope to, after this prototype has been created, we would be able to distribute potentially 5 to 10,000 devices and then hand them over to professionals ranging from chefs to fragrance people to even the chiefs of like the San Francisco Police Department so they can start annotating, you know, all the things that is going to be important. The way how that works is basically so we're working on this module where like let's say for smells, like you'll be able to detect them through gas. And so we're kind of in the phase of whether we should put it inside the device itself or in a separate module. But the idea behind it is you'd be able to, you know how you can collect like you have carbon monoxide detectors and fire detectors. You'd be able to, the idea is to be able to consolidate them all together, and be able to precisely measure the concentrations. And then once it's recorded, like in this general annotation device, you'd then be able to like say, oh, this is the smell of blueberries, or oh, this is the smell of like I don't know, like a high carbon monoxide areas. So we
Yeah.
also have like a robot dog. Like we offer robots as a service, like under the Universal AI Services umbrella. So this robot dog, when we attach the annotation device with it, called what we call the Sense 2, it would be able to go to places that are too dangerous for humans to record on, such as areas with high carbon monoxide levels. And the idea behind it is once those are recorded, hopefully future phone designers and manufacturers would be able to use the data set to allow users to notify them like, oh, you need to leave because this is a high carbon monoxide area. So when it comes to gas, like it's through smells, being able to like consolidate like as much sensors as possible. There has been recent progress around like carbon nanotubes in the sense of like it's able to bind certain molecules. But of course, the main challenge at the moment is its high price point because those types of sensors do cost around 15 to $5,000.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but at least for the first, I'd say roughly 2 to 3 generations, the idea is to just try to capture as much existing, like consolidate as much sensors as possible into one easy to use device. Same thing with Taste. With Taste, you'd have a separate cartridge, like a one-time use cartridge. And the way how that would work is, for example, you wanted to record Kool-Aid, you would be able to use this cartridge to be able to hopefully split apart the UV rays, and within each UV itself, you'd be able to record how dark or how bright that specific color would be. And so within Taste, like hopefully someone would be able to annotate, leveraging generative AI because it can be a little bit cumbersome to annotate like all of the chemicals of Kool-Aid. Hopefully one would be able to annotate that properly. So that's what we have. If you'd like, I can show you what the design looks like here.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that'd be great if you want to throw that up. Yeah. Why not?
So this is the one that we have. This is the device that I was talking about. Here are the
Okay.
parts.
Next to your phone, is that what I saw there?
No, it's a separate device.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's kind of like our we hope for it to be kind of roughly the size of a smartphone though.
Right.
The idea behind it is you'd have there would be a separate module like this little arm thing where it would be possible to measure touch. And there would be like a module like somewhere in the bottom that one can attach, like for example, to be able to record the taste. And of course, like as I mentioned, there's this gas component to it to be able to detect smells at the top. Yeah, we're still working out the kinks behind it, trying to create in terms of creating the prototype. But the idea behind it is you'd be able to like use it to annotate like a whole variety of things.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, of course, there's the traditional sense of taste, trying out different foods. We mentioned that, but yeah, it sounds like ultimately what you're building out is like the sense organs of robotics AI, so that in any given way that you might want to detect molecules of gas in the air, the AI or the robot would be able to use that to, for whatever application, whether it's carbon monoxide detection or some other new use case that AI develops or comes up with, where that
Detect
can be.
fentanyl hotspots, which is unfortunately like definitely needed in the streets of San Francisco or some of those streets.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. So you mentioned you're raising money. What would be the next steps once you get that money? Is there a certain next step that you guys are raising that money for that you want to implement?
Yeah, so we plan on using it to be able to develop the MVP prototype, at least the first
Yeah.
prototype of the device, and then we hope to distribute it. So I would anticipate like I guess we could start with maybe 2,000, 1 to 2,000 people, and then they would be able to kind of be the beta testers from there. So the idea behind fundraising is so it would allow us to be able to scale. And so yeah, we plan on using like the money towards creating like hopefully one of the world's major open source data sets, right? So we would anticipate, assuming we were able to secure the funding and before the end of this year or next year, not too long from there, in the next 12 to 36 months, we would be able to distribute the first generation prototype, and then hopefully by the end of next year have the at least 10,000 data points around smells, taste, and touch, respectively.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds like an awesome goal and vision for the company. And so how is it, if you don't mind me asking, how has it been funding so far? And do you have any tips for anyone else that's funding or that's trying to fundraise, how they might be able to really yeah, meet whatever their goals are?
Yeah, I mean, so far it starts with leveraging with what you already have, right? So like for many startups, they usually like especially in pre-seed and seed rounds, it's primarily funded through family and friends. And so that is going to be your key. Like that's why it's important that like you develop good networks and connections.
Right.
Um like ourselves, right? So yeah, as far as like the journey has been, it can feel frustrating, I will say, in terms of trying to fundraise because you'll have a lot of naysayers, but hopefully but don't be bogged down. Just keep in mind, like, okay, when it comes to fundraising, typical fundraising rounds, it usually takes between 6 to 18 months,
Mhm.
roughly, for it to, finally be finished. And at the same time, it would usually like also require having met like having done like hundreds of meetings as well. So, yeah, some people may have only needed like, two investors, and some maybe it takes them like, I don't know, it requires having to meet like 2,000 potential investors. But like, as far as like what averages go, it's like usually 6 to 18 months. That usually would be enough for most people, especially when they're when their companies are between like, say, roughly like $5 to $10 million.
Yeah, and it's helpful to know to at least have some frame of reference of how long it'll take and how many meetings, just because when you go into a problem and you don't know where the end is, it's a lot mentally tougher to get through it because you just don't know how long I'm going to be in this kind of limbo of just pitching to investors. So it's good to have some kind of frame of reference so that you can see if things are going well or not too, and know that, if you need to change, if you've gotten 12 months in and you're not even close, then and the average is 18 months, at least you have some idea that you need to change something. So that's great to know. Another question back to your actual device. So are there certain because I know if you're detecting molecules in the air, I mean, are you starting off with certain molecules like like maybe salt for and NaCl, right? Sodium chloride, that kind of stuff, like the main flavor profile ingredients, or how does that work?
So we would start, of course, with like, okay, trying to consolidate all the available like gas detectors that
Okay, I
are
see.
not
Yeah.
too costly, right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, just trying to get the sensor for the carbon monoxide and the fire detectors would be key. Like they're in the form of like, okay, like metal oxide semiconductors. And once, yeah, so the idea behind it is it would be able to detect, okay, we would start with like at least for the first 2, 3 generations, it's going to be really rough, right? And really limited in terms of its capability for now. But it's able to detect hopefully like different levels of gas, like primarily like, yeah, toxins, I guess would be the most easy way to be able to consolidate.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to start off with what's out there and then kind of consolidate that together rather than reinventing the sensors, and then from there you can build up on top of it. Your device has many different components, different senses. I would imagine that you're probably working with a lot of different people within the industry, whether that's a tech industry or culinary industry. Who are the main partners that you're working with, and how's that been?
Right now, we have been working with another consulting company that's primarily hardware based in terms of being able to design the prototypes that you saw recently. Another useful opportunity that has been quite fruitful so far has been being a member of the Frontier Tower group. They have an amazing space, as you can tell from your last visit
Right.
last
Yeah.
basically every floor has different themes, ranging from cryptocurrency to AI and robotics, which is kind of like our floor, our company's floor. There's a floor dedicated for what's called the maker space, where people would just build like just anything and everything related to like silicon chips and electronics. So we plan on leveraging that as well as the robotics floor and engaging with the communities there to help us develop these devices.
I had actually never heard of the Frontier Tower until I was walking to the event with someone, a friend that I met. I didn't know him ahead of time, but I met him in San Francisco, and he said, "Oh yeah, this is supposed to be like the center of where startups are started or something like that. And I never even heard of it. So is there some kind of story or mythos behind the Frontier Tower? How'd that become so iconic?
Right. I mean, don't quote me on this. Don't reference me
No
on.
problem at all. Yeah.
But from my understanding is it was
Yeah.
started by a couple of crypto like multimillionaires who made their money off of crypto. And
Oh,
then
okay.
they leveraged like debt financing and everything with the banks to be able to secure the 14th floor space.
Yeah.
And yeah, the idea behind it is also to reinvigorate the San Francisco community because for the last like roughly decade it was around as one may know, maybe it has been kind of dying as at least as of recent. Like in the last 2 years, it's just undergoing a renaissance. But um, but before then, yeah, it had its busts, right?
Hmm.
Especially during COVID. And so yeah, it's just they wanted to have that sort of space where like communities of all different kind of verticals would be able to come together and hopefully support one another as we continue on this journey called life here in the Silicon Valley world.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's interesting. I thought initially when my friend told me about it that it was more of like a inorganically grown, office space, but it sounds like it was a very top-down thing, like it was planned out by these crypto guys. So that's very interesting. And you mentioned that the center of mass of Silicon Valley is moving towards San Francisco last night when I met up with you. And I wonder, yeah, has the tower played that role? Is that the driving force?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the past decade, at least initially when I started out, there was a lot of events like just all over the Bay Area, right? Not so much in San Francisco, but it's like spread throughout like Palo Alto, San Jose. But now if you try to visit like events like at least in the past year, there's a lot of events happening in San Francisco, specifically around AI.
Yeah.
Now, do keep in mind there still are events that happen like in San Jose and Palo Alto on occasion, but they're very rare and they're very broad. It's like, oh, it's just general tech. And a lot of the events that happen like in the South Bay is what out like south of San Francisco, they tend to end early, like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Whereas sometimes some of the events in San Francisco go on until 4 in the morning. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a different vibe, I will say. And even companies such as Y Combinator have recently shifted their focus from their main headquarters in Mountain View to San Francisco. Now they have an office in close proximity to OpenAI because there's a lot of innovation happening there, and they're increasingly mandating a lot more people to come like be in the space because you can have these sort of like coffee chats like and you can also like interact with them much more easily when you can actually see them and have like impromptu meetings or share ideas much more easily that way than if someone were in Palo Alto and then there's another person in Mountain View. It's like it's going to require a lot of driving, right?
I think that definitely as someone who's a fan of cities, I've been a fan of cities since I went to school, and I just happened to I didn't set out to do it, but when I went to college, it just happened to be that my college was in a city, and yeah, there's definitely a lot more exposure and cool stuff going on that you just don't get exposed to if you're not as crammed into a small space. And but no, it's not in a bad way. Of course, the rent in San Francisco and Manhattan is high for the space that you get, but it's definitely worth it in my opinion to live at least nearby. You can commute in if you live right outside of it. And yeah, the number of people that I've met even at New York events that are extremely knowledgeable about all sorts of technologies, legal tech or other areas, common or e-commerce, like you mentioned, fintech. One big difference besides two big differences. One is I feel like there is more funding in the Bay Area, so that's an advantage out there. And then there's free food. That's something that I was so shocked by. I went to my first event in it was for a VR event right in like downtown San Francisco, and it was a free event, and I was shocked they had like free ice cream, open bar, free trial of the VR devices. Yeah, popcorn, all sorts of snacks and stuff. And I think that's just that might be kind of the same as point one is that, because there's just a lot of funding out in the valley. So there definitely is enough to give out free food.
I mean, 80%, I think it was roughly 80% or about $110 billion was actually funded like primarily in San Francisco. New York is a close second. I think there was some kind of statistic that I can recall where San Francisco is still the startup central, like by far. Where okay, in terms of the VC deal value, it was like San Francisco had 430 billion, like close to $1 trillion just in 2024 alone.
Yeah.
Whereas New York, it's like 180 billion. And I know they're kind of like in the same league as like similar lead as Beijing and Los Angeles. But that's crazy, you know? Keep in mind like San Francisco doesn't have that like massive population like people
Right.
in New York are. So it's just the fact that there's so much wealth being just like spread around and like being created is just extraordinary to be in San Francisco,
Yeah.
part of.
Yeah, right. And like you mentioned the population, I mean, if it's 400 something billion versus 100 something million in New York, I mean, the per capita amount, would be even an
It's
even
a lot higher for
an
sure.
even higher multiple. So, I still love New York and there's a lot going on here. It's a great tech scene, but it does make me wonder, should I move out?
I highly recommend
Yeah.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
the boom is happening right now.
Right, right.
Take advantage of it while you still can, or you may need to wait until the next boom happens, which is likely going to happen again. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing with San Francisco. It's like it always had its booms and busts. Like
Yeah.
San Francisco used to only have like 200 people right before the gold rush, and then suddenly, right after in the 1850s, like there were like roughly 20,000 people all of a sudden, like a couple years later. Then you had the World War II booms and busts and the hippie movement. And as recent as like the 2000s dot-com boom and bust, right? And then you had the 2010 social media
Yeah.
boom and bust, or like COVID bust. And then now you're having the AI boom. God knows anyone like would know when that would end, but
Yeah.
but overall, San Francisco has been quite resilient. At the end of the day, it's not it's not its first boom, and it's not certainly not going to be its last for sure.
Right. That's a good point to stretch back the history to the gold rush. And when you mentioned boom and bust, I goes, oh, what? Yeah, how many plaques did I read about, referencing the gold rush and everything when I was visiting? And so it really has been a boom and bust city since day one. So that's pretty fascinating.
But also the weather plays an important role too. There are simply like more or less about two seasons in San Francisco. There's summer, right? A nice, perfect summer that's mostly sunny, not too hot, not too cold, around 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you have not so sunny. Um, whereas I understand in New York, oh, you have like four really legit seasons, right? So a lot of people in the Bay Area, just similar to the ones you'd find in LA, simply wear like, okay, just a t-shirt and maybe shorts and that's it, and flip-flops. That's still the case, like even today. And it allowed people to not have to think about what to wear, right? They're able to instead allocate those resources towards like, okay, how I can build my like a better business or a better product or serve my people well. So all these sorts of like 2 second things or 2 minutes like they tend to add up over time. And as the world is getting a little bit warmer, it's also increasingly like San Francisco is definitely increasingly becoming in demand because of how cool literally it is and not too hot, not too cold. Yeah, it's just like that perfect weather.
Yeah, yeah, the weather was beautiful when I was there, and it was that perfect temperature for walking around. And even I didn't even know San Francisco has a pretty nice beach as well. I visited down there, and there was lots of people out there. It was warm enough to in October, mid-October, to enjoy the beach in shorts and a t-shirt. So yeah, that was nice, and it's funny to think that Silicon Valley, may have sprung up because of some time saved with nice weather. But no, it's true though. There's a reason that things centered around that area. And I'm sure it's a bunch of factors, but if there is a reason and that's only been compounded by people moving there, then there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, plays a really important role for many people. And so when you have that sort of stability in terms of weather, like predictable weather, it is definitely like allows people as a whole to be able to think a little bit
Yeah.
differently and
From that perspective, yeah, right. Not just like, is one person getting there, a little bit earlier. It's like if there's some kind of collective intelligence going on and the time it takes, to send messages between or for people to meet, if you picture it like neurons in the brain to fire between each other, if that's a bit quicker, that's going to be, a faster clock cycle and it's going to innovate faster, right? So even those small differences makes the collective brain a bit smarter.
Of course. Yeah.
Did you have a mentor getting into this that sort of led you or pointed out the pitfalls in this path and kind of got you up to speed, or did you just kind of dive into it?
I have a few mentors. I mean, one of them is my brother. Before he successfully exited, so to speak, or like before his company got acquired recently, he had his first three failures, and with like various ventures. So like having him as a
Yeah.
sort of like he's kind of helped kind of set
I'm
the tone.
inspired myself already just hearing that one sentence alone.
Yeah, it's so I mean he's a great person. His name is Philip. He's now officially a VC. So yeah. Something you could like easily get along with as well. And we tend to have like a lot of these interesting like philosophical like chats about, just about life in general, where we would ideally see ourselves like say 50 years from now. We both like kind of like we're chatting about that and like what are some like as well as like what are some of the values that and principles that will continue to ring true like decades if not centuries from now as well. Yeah, he's definitely one of them. There are a few on occasion that I tend to meet as well, like pretty often. So that's also a nice touch. Being able to continue like supporting each other, whether it's creating events or simply them having them as like a keynote speaker or VC panelist, definitely like helps like continue. It helps like my mentors and I continue to stay engaged.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned your brother kind of being a mentor and someone who's your partner as you both are going through your separate ventures. Two interviews ago, I interviewed a guy, Aaron, that he said the same thing. Him and his brother, both very entrepreneurial, and they kind of I believe it was his older brother as well. Same kind of idea, kind of mentored Aaron, mentored him. And yeah, I'd be curious to see how often is that kind of does that kind of relationship thrive in the Silicon Valley space, in the startup space, if that's kind of like a good recipe for kind of having the emotional resilience that it takes to start a startup.
And
And
the
yeah,
trust is like one of the major factors nowadays, right? And
yeah,
especially
yeah,
given how
absolutely.
small the community is.
Right, yeah, no, that's definitely true. Usually I ask like what's going to make your product competitive compared to competition, but I mean I haven't heard about a similar product. I'm sure someone because there's always someone else out there, but yeah, I haven't heard too many. But have you started thinking about what's going to differentiate your product and keep it at the forefront versus if someone else is trying to do something similar, trying to push into the other sense domains that we haven't gotten into yet?
Like that was one of the reasons why we created Project Atlas is because there literally isn't that sort of like general company that is offering like an open source data set around smell, taste, and touch. I'm sure there are companies that specifically work on smells and taste respectively, but well, also keep in mind, okay, a lot of those companies like are very close. Like they keep the data all to themselves. And so,
Okay.
but the idea behind it is hopefully with this open source data set, it would be that sort of central repository that future innovators and designers would be able to use for their own services to be able to create a much better world. That's kind of like the overall purpose for us. For Universal AI Services, we are a company headquartered in San Francisco and have, all this is under the umbrella of Universal AI Services. The Project Atlas that I mentioned, the robots as a service, are all under that umbrella. We basically differentiate ourselves in terms of, okay, we already have, like, this company was founded by Harvard, people like me, Stanford. We have people from co-founding team members from MIT. And so we all came together because we saw this need where there needs to be this sort of like organization. You can think of it as like, okay, McKinsey, but for Silicon Valley. And currently there's not really
Okay, interesting.
something
Yeah.
like it. Right now, a lot of these like, okay, Accenture's, like Bain and Co., McKinsey itself, they're all headquartered here in New York, right? But there's not really like a dedicated consulting company for Silicon Valley by Silicon Valley people. And so that's the kind of market that we're serving.
Okay, yeah, that's fascinating because I was going to ask I'm surprised I didn't ask it sooner, but so before you said that you're open sourcing the data, and so that's not you're not making money off of selling the data or having people subscribe to it. You're open sourcing that. So would your main, unless you guys are non for profit, would your main revenue be from the consultation services?
It would be in the form, yes, both in consultation services and data specific services. So if, for example, like say a major company like Coca-Cola, right, needs like 1 million tasting notes, leveraging our
I
device, we would try get that arranged. They would retain the data for a set period of time. After that set of period of time expires, and it just like it's all gets absorbed under the open source data set. And so that like just being able to create like these niche data sets for specific companies would be like the moneymaker here.
I see. Okay, so they would pay to get whatever niche data set that's going to make them money or improve their
Yes, in the
whatever their
form of
goals are.
yes.
Gotcha, gotcha. That makes sense. Just a couple more questions here. What's been the biggest challenge so far in your startup journey?
The biggest challenge so far probably has been, at least from my perspective, is trying to find, of course, like I'm in a very like we're technically at the forefront at the of smell, taste, and touch. And so one of the downsides of that is it's like there's hardly anyone working in the space.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So definitely trying to find like good people who would be interested in helping us design, or even fundraise around this is
yeah.
definitely like, it's a massive multi-trillion dollar opportunity here, that could be created. Yeah, I would say people and as well as funding, I definitely think is kind of top of mind. Because these devices like they cost like a small amount, and so relatively small amount. Yeah, I guess the bigger problem would be just getting more people engaged and hopefully trying to create products and services around smells, taste, and touch is top of mind.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about who do I know that could help with that. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is I had a previous guest that she kind of works on various devices, also has like an umbrella company for that kind of resells various devices for people with disabilities. And so oftentimes if someone has a like you mentioned, the two major senses that we tend to kind of lean on, sight and hearing, if those are disabled and they have to rely on other things. And so I'm curious if people in that space that have had to work around the problem of people not having sight and hearing would have developed a lot of resources for taste or smell or touch. So maybe that's a good avenue for you to meet more people with resources. And I'd be happy to introduce you to that previous guest.
Yeah, that would be much appreciated. The thing with universal AI services is like we do you can think of it as kind of like an innovation lab as well. Like if there's an interesting project that you would like to work on, I mean, feel free, we'll te test it out, right? And that's the kind of idea behind it is like, okay, we'd offer like a variety of universal AI services.
Right.
Whatever you need to be able to succeed.
Yeah,
So
that's great. Yeah, last question here. If you were to leave it, whoever's listening who wants to start a company with your biggest insight or insights about starting a startup, what would that be?
I would say doing things like doing a variety of things would be key. So, and being able to have an open mind is also going to be key. And because that's kind of like the ethos of what Silicon Valley itself prides on is being able to have an open mind and taking risks on top of the diversity that with like this community is already blessed with, right? Surrounding yourself with really good people, like ambitious people, is going to be key. You would want to be surrounded by those who elevate you as a person.
Yeah,
Um, and so in order to get that, you have to find opportunities to do that, whether it's through school, extracurricular activities, or just simply going to events like in person all the like often, like say like 1 or 2 events a day, perhaps.
wow.
You're bound to find some luck, finding that next potential co-founder or investor, or a potential client as well.
Yeah,
And
it
the most important
yeah,
is to be consistent, right?
consistent.
Because you will come, there will absolutely be days where you may feel like you want to give up and
Yeah.
you feel like everything is dying. But it's only going to officially die, whatever project you have, if you are no longer working on it.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And that hits on that theme that so many of the guests I've interviewed say is that persistence is the most important point. But I agree with what you said about being open-minded because I mean, yeah, I've been working on my startup idea on the side for a while. It's not the first thing to think of start hosting networking events when trying to, solve this specific problem that I'm working on. Of course, yeah, everyone always says you want a big network, but yeah, it's good to try things out, go to some event, sign up for something. And now I realize like, oh, there's an incredible amount of opportunity to get from just hosting these events, going to them and meeting all these people that I never would have realized if I didn't just go to that first event and try it out. Yeah, you want to be consistently focused, but then also have kind of like that depth, but then also some degree of breadth of trying out various things, and then just like a diversified stock portfolio, one may take off, and then you can allocate more resources to that, and then let that grow.
Right. I mean, life is already too short to just do one thing and one thing only.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like in the mindset of like who is that person I aspire to be? Like I aspire to be that of like Leonardo da Vinci or Benjamin Franklin, where they are like experts at not just one domain, but like a variety of domains, right? In both the arts and sciences. And so that's the vision behind it is if you are able to take a part to be part of this revolution in terms of figuring out how you can combine the arts and sciences together is going to be like imperative and important moving forward because there's a lot of like things that may seem like they're all disconnected and frankly they are. But at the same time, when you have this sort of creative mindset of being open-minded, you'll start to think in ways that most people can't, that most people otherwise could not. And you'd be surprised how complementary like two very different things can be as well. So that's why it's important to keep an open mind and to be consistent about it too, and to try and fail.
Yeah.
Uh, because that's the beauty about Silicon Valley itself is that it is also the land of second chances. That is not, unfortunately, too common in New York, right? It's like people there tend to be a little bit more cautious. But going back to like my brother, he failed three. He had his first three startups fail, right?
Uh,
But he tried again, right? That's consistency right there.
yeah.
And he still had good relations with all of those co-founders that he had before. Like
That's good.
frankly, his before his successful exit, uh, he was with his co-founder in the previous two startups. And
Okay.
so
That is
and
consistency.
investors are still talking with him and like they've invested in him again because really at the end of the day, investors, at least in Silicon Valley, the people that I see, the really good investors
Yeah.
don't invest in the companies or the products themselves, they invest in the people.
Right. Yeah, and that definitely makes sense. And just to touch back on what you said about learning about diverse things. I mean, when training these LLMs, we learned that you train them on every corner of the internet, and somehow they come away with some kind of more fundamental understanding. And that obviously our brains are not the same as LLMs, but there may be something to that for us as well. Just like you said, finding those connections between disparate, separate fields. I mean, if there's some kind of a through line between very different fields, well, then that must be a pretty fundamental through line that you wouldn't have realized was so fundamental if it applies in engineering and then also art. Okay, that's something pretty important to know then, and pretty fundamental. So it's definitely good to diversify just to see what those what the structure of that underlying structure that kind of goes throughout every space is, and have an idea of how that works.
Civilization becomes more enriching when you're able to combine two very different things or three very different things into one.
Absolutely. Well, Fernando, it's been a pleasure to have you on here. I won't take up any more of your time because I want to let you explore the great city of New York, and I hope you enjoy your time here. And see some of the the stuff outside of the tech events too. There's lots of cool stuff to see and
A lot of
nightlife
great
and all that.
museums for sure.
Yeah, and museums as well. Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a pleasure, and I hope you I'll talk to you again in maybe a year or something and see how it's going.
Thanks, Brendan. Much appreciated. And it's a great pleasure having the opportunity to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take
Take
care.
care.